The positive side of delegation is you're not doing everything yourself, but you're having other people do things alongside you or for you. And I think it becomes a good thing when you're continuing to grow a team or a business or church or whatever. That delegation is important. A lot of times what happens in delegation, though, is that the person that's delegating stops working. And I think that's where the drama comes in of like, man, that person's not doing anything.
Hey there, welcome to the CA Podcast. I'm Chad, and I'm with...
Vinny.
Hey, it's Vinny. It's that guy that does stuff.
Lots of stuff.
Yeah,
Apparently.
You do a lot of stuff nowadays.
Yes.
I mean, like a lot of stuff. Like, you just have a Rolodex. Like, when we talk now, you're just like, yeah, this. It's just...
You're worse off than me, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you're traveling and doing a lot. I don't have to travel, thankfully.
Yeah, so what
Everything's
I do...
right here.
What I do to handle that is I have Chud and Chad, and I delegate everything to Chud that I don't want to do.
Right.
Chud does the stuff I don't want to do.
Chud does it, yes.
Yes. So, you know, and
funny.
if you've been around, Chud is my alter ego. And
that's the angry alter ego.
Yes, the angry alter ego.
The angry alter ego,
Yes.
Chud.
Yes. If I've been on a rampage or anything like that, it's Chud.
Definitely the Chud scale has come out.
But so with that, delegation, right?
Yes.
So there's some negative connotation sometimes to it, right? And then there's the positive side, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of times it can be associated with, oh, you're a supervisor. So we all make fun of supervisors a lot of times, you know, like, oh, you're just doing your thing,
right.
You know, you're not doing any work. But I think a lot of times with delegation, at least I've seen, is like when you see a good delegator, there's someone that can basically hold everything together. And then when you pull them out of the situation, things tend to fall apart because they're holding all these pieces together. But then there's the side of it, oh, they don't do any work. So there's also, so what have you seen? Because you've been in all kinds of different industries.
Yeah,
what have you seen?
So I think when you get busy, right, when there's a lot happening, right, it's good to be able to delegate to other people, right? So the positive side of delegation is you're not doing everything yourself, but you're having other people do things alongside you or for you. And I think it becomes a good thing when you're continuing to grow a team or a business or church or whatever. That delegation is important, right? A lot of times what happens in delegation, though, is that the person that's delegating stops working. Right. And I think that's where the drama comes in of like, man, that person's not doing anything. Right. And I've seen it played out in different scenarios where, you know, I was a GM of a restaurant. Right. And I was running two at the same time. And so for me, I was juggling scheduling. I was juggling this and all this stuff. And it was like hard for me to actually get into like making the food, right? So it's like, I'm not cooking, I'm not doing that side of it. I'm doing the front end, the back end, and all of that stuff in between. And so the negative side was my team didn't see me work, right? And so they didn't see like that side of it. They just thought I'd come in, I do this, that, and the other. They're not seeing all the, you know, who's paying the bills, who's doing who's paying the payroll, who's doing all that. They don't see any of that stuff because it's in the back office. And so it's like, for them, it was tough. And so what we ended up doing was bringing in somebody else to manage the other restaurant, right? And then I became full force in one or the other, depending on the day. And so then the team started seeing, oh, this guy can actually, you know, and it helped in the sense of, because I delegated so much stuff at one time because I was in two different places, right? And so, and then the team was like, oh, you know, like you want to build your team to a team that likes you,
for
right?
Sure,
and at least I do, and so. And so that's where we kind of transition, like, okay, I'm still GM over both, but I'm bringing in a manager, assistant to run the stores when I'm not there. He's doing that store, I'm doing this store, and we're both working it. And so we had some fun with that.
And I mean, for me, like, and you've been in this too, but like in the church world, right? You know, you have a lot of volunteers. So you have volunteer work that you're having to delegate to. So what that really comes down to is, you know, knowing their schedules, knowing, you know, how much they can take. Like how, you know, sometimes we have people and, you know, like they can serve once a month. And we have other people that want to serve every service of every week of every day, and they won't take anything less than that. And so, but the thing is, you can't treat someone like that like the person you treat that wants to do once a month. Like, you can't say, okay, do it once a month, because then they're just going to find somewhere else to go.
Right.
So there's a lot of different stuff. And so there's the idiosyncrasies you have to learn with people. And it's the same thing when you're in a job and doing employees. You have to learn the, you know, the trigger words and the, you know, hey, can you do this shift? And, you know, it's just, but with volunteers, a lot of times in the church, you know, from a top down perspective, a lot of times they can look at like, well, what does this person even do? You know, if this person is just training all these volunteers, well, what are they doing?
Right.
And I think that's a tough, you know, because at the same time, it's like what you're saying, like, if they're genuinely not working, then sure. But a lot of times when I was doing stuff and I was delegating, I was doing other stuff. Right. So I delegated to grow. So I knew, like, okay, if I keep doing X, Y, Z, I'll never grow the department. I'll never grow what we're doing. So if I can get X, Y, Z covered, right, then I can step back and I can start doing something else. And so, like, I think that's what I've done is, like, delegate to grow. Right. And that's what kind of what you were saying.
I think that the difference, like, there's so people's philosophy, like, that's good, right? Yeah. Like, that you're wanting to grow, but you don't stop working.
Right.
Right. And seeing the difference. And then that's the problem with some people is that they just stop working. Right? So when you see that, it's like, but hold on a second. Yeah. I'm literally the guy doing X, Y, and Z while this person is literally doing nothing. They're sitting there on their phone or their whatever. And it's like, bro.
Yeah. What are you doing?
What are you doing?
You
know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I've seen your teams and I've seen how you've managed them and delegated things. And like, what you do is you like clone yourself by training somebody else. Yeah. Right. And when you do that, right, you move to the next station. Right. Right. Where you basically, I'm an expert in this area, right? And so I need to create another expert. So you'll bring in 2 or 3 people, train them up, they become experts, and that in the meantime, you're learning this stage over here and becoming an expert over here. So when you become an expert in that, now you're bringing 3 people over here, training them there. So that's how you work. Yeah. A lot of people don't do that. No. Right? And what happens to a lot of people is that they'll train people in this area, never grow in this area, and then everybody sits back and watches as this person's doing nothing, everybody else is doing all the work, and this guy's like getting all the glory for it. Or 100%. Getting all the, what are you doing? Yeah,
100%. And I think that's the thing is because the phrase that was always used for me was, hey, you need to work yourself out of the job, right? You've heard that. Oh, it's used so much in ministry in every area, not just tech, but like every area. You need to train yourself out of a job. You need to train yourself out of a job. And then it's like, yeah, but then I have to have faith in you that you're not going to then put me out of a job. And, you know,
when I train all these people, right, what happens to me?
Right. And so I think that's where people are kind of like, even what I've seen is I've seen some leaders that will delegate, but they're almost going to stifle the people they're delegating so that they stumble a little bit.
Right.
So that the top loses faith in the people that have been delegated in without the person.
Right.
And it's very divisive. And so because I've seen it a lot of times, because places I've visited, places I've come across, places I've worked at, where it's like they'll basically drive a wedge intentionally between the people they've delegated and the leadership or and so then it'll be like, oh, well, hey, if I'm not here, this stuff doesn't get done.
Right.
When realistically what they've done is they've pulled steps, B and F out of A through F.
Right.
And now they don't know what to do. And so then they have to go to the delegator.
Right.
So, because I've seen that type of thing. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think that comes out of a little bit of insecurity. So in the sense of like, well, and sometimes it's well-founded because you're just wondering, well, yeah, are they going to replace me?
Yep.
Like I always had that, like until I got a little bit better at what I did and stuff like that. And then like I did that. What you're saying is like, I literally go, okay, well, if I'm delegating here, I need to start growing in something.
Right.
Then I grow something. Now I'm holding something that no one else knows how to do.
Right.
But then they're going to start learning it. And then when they start learning it, then I'm going to grab something else that no one knows how to do.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like a juggling thing. But at the same time, and one thing I did a lot at one of the places I was at was I focused on what can I do to train this person, right? Then bring in other people, allow basically creative, I say, control over for that person over training the next people. So now that person's training people.
Yep.
So then those people can train people. So what it does is then it creates this like almost kind of like a hierarchy, but at the same time, like it creates a freedom of like, oh, anybody can train.
Yeah.
Because the truth of the matter is most people, if they put their minds to it and actually enjoy what they're doing, can delegate.
Right. And it's good. And in a church environment, in a work environment, as I was running restaurants and stuff, and that's what we would do. Is like people would start off in one area, and I'd be like, okay, that's great. You're going to start there,
right?
But you're going to finish as my kitchen manager. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you might start as the busser. Right? But that wasn't the plan for you.
No.
The plan was to train you to learn every aspect of the restaurant so you can actually run my kitchen.
Right.
And dude, if I told you how many people I ran through a process of learning every aspect of the place. I mean, we had 5 other people become managers within a year and a half of me training up the entire staff. And it's like, how does that happen? It happens intentionally, right? By delegation, but also when you're training people, okay, now you learn this, train somebody else, train some, and doing that kind of a process. And I mean, it's incredible when it's done right, right? When it's done wrong, it hurts a business. It hurts a thing because then once that person steps away, right? Like you said, once that person walks away, it's like there's a huge void, right? And it's like that person has left this gap and it just brings down whatever they did. And it looks terrible for that person. Right? They always say, make sure you leave better than you came, right? And that when you leave, they won't miss a beat. You know what I mean? And I think that like that's a testament to like you as a employee, right? As a person, your character when you leave and you leave right, and things don't fall apart when you leave.
And I think the telltale sign of a delegator you want to keep employed is one that's taking people, like you said, through the rungs. And it's not, they're not just being delegated a task, but then they're learning, how to do the oversight of that task and then how to move to the next thing. Because I think that's one thing that I focus on a lot of times is especially in volunteer work. And it's so common is that you get stuck doing one thing as a volunteer and it just gets boring. And then you end up transitioning out to another department. That's just typically what happens. So what I would always try to do is like think the whole, and we were on staff at the same church. So they had the same mentality of the Chipotle model. And that's the thing is how can I move somebody from one position to the next?
Dude, and what's funny? I'm like thinking of like, people that we're a part of, right? And it's like, it's hard when you're a manager, right? And you're managing people, right? But those people are stuck in what they're doing. So you're delegating and you're trying to push people, and those people won't nudge. They won't learn. They won't, they don't want to grow from where they're at to where you're trying to take them.
It's tough.
Right? Like I'm having this situation in a few areas right now, and I'm like, man, I don't know what else to do. I've like tried to put people in certain arenas and I'm like, and it's like, bro, you have all the potential in the world. You personality. You can like talk to people. You can do these things and you just don't do it. Like, it's like, to me, it's like, and that now I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to pull that. I got to pull back,
have to,
right? And then change up and try and maneuver. And it's like, as a delegator and as a person, sometimes it looks bad on you because other people aren't doing what you've trained them to do. And and it's like, so the reflection becomes, well, that person's not really good at what they're doing. When in essence, it's really not you. It's the other people that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's like, so like I've realized that a lot of times you have to delegate it to, you try delegating it to the right people, but you never know what you're going to get sometimes.
And that's the thing is you have to be ready to like pull an audible and be like, okay, so you're going here, like, and that's the thing is like one thing that I've had to do occasionally is pull like almost an audit of my entire volunteer base or and be like, okay, who's good at this? Cause this is the deficiency we have right now. And like have to pull somebody that's really good at what they're doing here to come and fill in here.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking about like a dude you're working with right now that was on audio. Comes over to the video side. And is like you cloned him. Like
Yeah.
you literally, I'm like watching his shots and it's like, well, there you go. And you've done that with like a few different people. So we're not trying to like,
but the good thing about him is he was very observing. So like I even wasn't here when he was transitioning in.
Right.
And he was learning like the whole thing. And then we would talk occasionally. And then he sat and he watched me one time. And now he's calling everything because what he was seeing was when he was on the audio side, he was seeing some deficiencies and some things. And so he came over and he observed why they were happening. And then he came in and fixed them on his end. And so it was like one of those things of, it was really cool because it was, and that's kind of what we're talking about is like people that are like come in the situations that are being delegated things that really want to learn and like they're actually pushing towards something.
Complete opposite of what I was saying.
Yeah.
Like this guy's like totally in it.
And so I think that's the thing is like, and that's when we get people like that, it's like gifts because it's like, oh, this person's like they're watching videos, because he's watching video, doing stuff outside of right. And so because like I said, I wasn't here for basically 5-6 weeks, so and that's when he was coming in, and so he was learning, and so he was able to learn in the environment. And the thing is we made a lot of tweaks to the environment to be more conducive. Right. And so now like it was good as some of the videos he goes and watches, it's the similar setup because more professional setup. Yep. So that's helped too. So, and that's the other thing too, is knowing as a delegator when your environment is hindering the people you're delegating to. Super. So like if your environment is hindering them, then you have to change the environment as the delegator. And I think that's the job that sometimes delegators miss is like, oh, well, that's just how it is. It's like, no, like you need to change. If if there's something that needs to be fixed, if there's something that needs to be swapped out, if there's just something that's generally not working, you have to fix it. That's good to make the environment better. Right. It's good. And so like I'm going to bring this full circle, and kind of bring it back because we started with job delegation and whatever. Yeah. And so like I remember when I was working at a burger joint and. So we had all these systems in place of how we would run a shift, right? And we ended up, our labor cost was so high, right? And it was like we had so much prep time beforehand. And it was like you looked at it and like, okay, we're delegating all of this stuff to the employees. And we're like, but the managers, right, are being paid, right? And they're there, but delegating. And it was like, okay, what switch can we make? Well, we stopped bringing in employees until 10 a.m. And all the managers came in early and did all of the prep work. Right? And it took our labor. Bro, we had no labor at that point because our labor cost was, the managers aren't part of our labor cost. Yeah. It was the employees. So when you take that employee out, your labor costs went crazy. And we were delegating and thinking, okay, we get time to do orders and whatever. Yeah. But literally our prep time was crazy. And the managers ended up doing an incredible job with getting everything done. So when the employees would come in, that's when we would jump back, do everything we had to do. Then 12 o'clock lunch rush, we're back on the line helping. Boom, back in the office at 2. And then same thing at dinner. We're back on the line. And it's like we realized how we can run a shift, right, way better than just delegation. And bringing it full circle. Delegation is great for some things. Oh, yeah. Bad for others. For sure. Right? So there's so many positives and negatives to it. I think it's really a positive thing if it's done right. Yeah. And the moment you realize that it's being done wrong, it's highly recognizable. Yeah. And delegation is more than just delegation. Right. And I think that's what everyone misses is it's a lot more than just it's a lot more than do this. Yes. That's what it's a lot more. Yeah, I think people simplify it as that. You do this while I do this. Yes, exactly. Right? Yep. You do this while I do that. You know? And it's like if you can do it that way, then delegation works. Yeah. But if you're like, hey, you go do that while I'm gonna, sit on my phone over here or whatever. It's like, come on, man. You can't be doing that. That's tough. Like, let's make this workflow work best for everybody. Yeah. 100%. And I think that's how delegation works best. Yeah. So. Love it. All right. Well, that's the show for the day. There you go. All right. We'll see y'all next time. Week.